Hey friends, this is Taylor Waits back again with another video, and this one is for the students, particularly my students. I am doing this video particularly as to be an amazing example for my already expert level rhetoricians of students, but also to, do a comparative analysis. I just want to do one. As my students know, I saw this movie and I keep talking about it over the course of these past couple of weeks, so I'm excited to do this video. It's a comparative analysis of the two most recent Superman movies, Man of Steel from 2013 and Superman from 2025, from this year. My purpose in doing this, outside of being, the example for my students, is to also break down the main ideas, the characterizations, and notable moments from the culture surrounding these movies at the time, as well as within the movie portions that I really enjoyed and did not enjoy. So, for the purposes of remaining as logical as possible, I will start with the earlier movie, Man of Steel, and then go into Superman 2025. Then I'll talk about things that I liked and disliked about both. So, without further ado, let's begin. Man of Steel 2013 was directed by Zack Snyder and written by David Goyer and produced by Warner Bros. Pictures. Notably, one of the original co-creators of Superman, Joe Shuster's family, sued DC and Warner Bros. And continues to sue them for the rights to the character, but due to the family losing their case, Jerry Siegel, another one of the other co-creators, and Shuster's family were not part of the creation of this film. And this comes from E! News. At the time, the Schuster's lawyers told media, "We respectfully disagree with the order's factual and legal conclusions." With this win under the belt, Zack Snyder and Christopher Nolan moved forward with a new direction for Superman and eventually the DCEU. So with Superman reintroduced into the DCEU, the new Justice League with The Flash, Aquaman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, and all of their subsequent individual as well as canon movies could then be born. This movie relies on the use of flashbacks. The majority of the movie is flashbacks. Lots of symbolism, and I will say the cinematography is beautiful. It's grayscale to all fuck. I don't understand why it's such a gray movie, but it is shot beautifully, and the CGI is really good as well. I will put the messages up on the screen now so that you can see them, and I'll read them aloud. These are what I think the movie is trying to tell the larger audience. Do what is right no matter if you die or not. You can be more than what society wants for you. Every person can be a force for good, and keep striving to be great. This movie focuses on the beginnings of Superman before he became Superman. Specifically, we focus on Clark Kent before he gets his job at the Daily Planet, before meeting Lois Lane, after his father's death, and before he has announced himself to the world as Superman. The main reason behind why he has not shared his superpowers with the world is because of his father, Jonathan, his his fateful, I call him fateful father because he's not necessarily a chosen father. He fell out of the sky and that was the first dude to find them, but I think it was fate that Jonathan is his father. So I call him his fateful father, who believes that the world is not ready for Superman. After Clark is caught saving a school bus of his classmates and himself, his father tells him, people are afraid of what they don't understand. He believes that Clark will be ostracized in society and be put in prison because he is an alien and humans are not ready. This conversation leads Jonathan to show Clark the ship he was sent in. He tells Clark somewhere out there he has another family and has a different name. He is an alien and was probably sent to Earth for a reason. He tells Clark he owes it to himself to figure out that reason. We follow Clark as he navigates life without his father after the tragic death, which I'll talk about because that's one of the things in the movie I hate, and tries to find a way to help people without being seen as Superman. This leads him to many secret rescues that build many stories about the secret Superman. This is where Lois Lane goes into the picture. Lois Lane is an already established journalist who has won a Pulitzer Prize working for a very well-known newspaper called the Daily Planet. While on assignment in Antarctica, she ends up discovering both Clark Kent himself and the ship that he flew to Earth in. He dumps her, well, not the ship itself, but one of the station ships that Kryptonians sent to one of the many planets when they were setting up beacons in areas to colonize. new planets with world machines, which is like the big thing of the movie. We'll talk about that more. But she ends up discovering both Clark Kent and the ship that one of the Kryptonians sent over during a war. He dumps her outside of his ship after discovering her and saving her, and sails away in the ship. Rival aliens from Superman's home planet, Krypton, are made aware of Superman from the ship being turned on and come to Earth. They announce his presence and ask him to surrender to him. After a quick trip to church, Clark decides to turn himself into Captain Zod, the head of the army, or the rebel army from Krypton. Lois Lane was also asked to come along. Clark and Lois trick Zod with the help of Clark's biological father, Jor-El. Back on Earth, Captain Zod terrorizes humans in and out of Clark's life in order to get him to give up. Through perseverance and sure will, Clark defeats his planet's former army and gets a job at the Daily Planet, where he can keep his ear to the streets. So that's kind of the plot and what's the main portions of the movie. I'm missing a ton of stuff in the middle there, obviously. What I want to get to is the characterizations of all the main players of the story. So first up we have Jor-El, and Jor-El, to me, who is Clark's biological father, is the representation of good, right? He is the father of the first natural birth in Krypton, and the reason why they had this natural birth is because something called the Codex pre-tells what every Kryptonian is going to be. So every Kryptonian, they don't get to pick what job they are. It's predestined for them. But Jor-El and Laura, Clark's parents, are like, nah, let them niggas choose. So they are like, we're not like other Kryptonians. We're not like the other Kryptonians. And the entire point of even having this scene of Laura and Jor-El sending Superman away, I think, is pivotal to the story. Now, in this version, Jor-El is pro-Earth. He's like, I want you to go out to Earth to be their savior, be an example for them. He wants to send their son out there amongst the stars. He will live. He's dedicated his life for Superman to save human beings with his guidance. He sends his son off saying, give them hope. Our hopes and dreams travel with you. So he wants to see Clark grow old and to save human beings and more importantly, to save them all. Clarifying that he can save everybody on Earth, but he can also he's an alien, he can save other people too. He can be an example for all beings of all planets, including Zod and Krypton as well. And then we look at Laura, who we don't see for very long, but we see her also worried about the sacrifice that she has to give. She has to give her only son, to space or to Earth in hopes that he grows up to be a good person. But she says to Cal, or Clark, as he's being sent away, make a better world than ours, Cal. So she also loves Earth, pro-Earth parents. Remember that for the second film, right? Then we go to General Zod, who really represents... it's funny because you get that thing with villains where you're kind of on their side, because the thing about Krypton, which I feel like the movie also is talking about, is global warming and politicians, because the politicians of Krypton have driven the planet to ruin, and now the planet is going to combust, similar to what global warming is doing to planet Earth, because our politicians are stupid. And that's for all countries. And so it's kind of like an allegory to what's happening here on Earth. And Zod, I think, has a noble cause. Our entire people are going to be wiped out. But as Kal-El and some of the other elders say, we've done this to ourselves, so maybe we deserve it. And with our old ways and old ways of thinking, our old ideas will go as well. So that's sort of their way of thinking. But Zod is like, nah, we're going to keep this going. And we're going to keep the traditional ways, including me choosing who gets to live and die. And of course, that's where Kal-El's like, okay, extending our race, sure, I can see that. But extending it just for the purpose of eugenics, bro, just die with the rest of us. That's why we need to die, to be honest. If you think eugenics is the answer, we should probably all blow up. And so that was hilarious. Clark and the characterization of Superman himself. So Superman in this movie is not the happy-go-lucky, young, bright-eyed American white man who doesn't curse. You know what I mean? He doesn't curse in the movie, but he definitely says, I think, damn. He's severely traumatized by growing up as a superhero and having to hide it. He experiences what I call panic attacks, but I call them power attacks. And his mom has to teach him how to regulate his emotions, but also how to regulate his powers. And his dad yells at him every time he tries to save people. So there was this huge flashback where they go back to a time that Clark saved an entire school bus of children, including himself. He was really just making sure he didn't die, you know what I mean? Saved an entire school bus of children, including his bully. And his dad got really upset with him because he's like, bro, they're going to find out you're an alien. Like, we're trying to keep that on the low. You don't need to be telling people you're an alien. Which is where the disdain for Jonathan comes for me, because I do not understand the point of writing this character in. In the original comic books, his dad does die, but he dies from a heart attack, kind of trying to prove this point that, like, even the world's strongest man can't save their dad from something inevitable. Kanye, stop. My dog, he's scratching. But yeah, that doesn't happen. Jonathan just tells him his whole life, like, you have to hide who you are. I don't really understand. I don't understand why that is. Why the dad is just so, like, I understand he wants to save him, but to characterize him as just like his whole life working against everything Clark wants to do is just very strange, because Clark actually has a really strong relationship to both of his parents, canonically. So it's just weird that they made his dad a weirdo and very complicated. But to me, the dad's weird. Which means now we get like this sort of buff. Well, Superman was always buff, but we get this like bristled, hardened. He reminds me of like the guy who works in the back of Kroger, like the guy who's in the back of the warehouse. He's like, I've been here for 17 years. He like hits his wife. Like, you already know there is so much that goes on amongst like these hard-working men, and that's what it gave, right? Like, he's just sort of a loser with and he just runs from place to place, and then after he saves people, he's got to leave again, and then he saves them and he runs again. But like I said, it doesn't really add up to much in his life. He actually takes revenge on people, like the trucker scene where he like fucks up the trucker's car for messing with him. It's like, he definitely takes retribution and whatnot, which is something that Superman isn't supposed to do, doesn't normally do, but because he's so traumatized from his childhood and from his father and having to hide so much of who he was and being bullied all the time, he's like, well, now I'm gonna fight back. I'm not gonna listen to my dad anymore, which is basically the summary of the movie. And I'm like, is that what we're teaching people? Don't listen to your dad? I don't know. And if that's the case, like, don't listen to your parents, I feel like that could have been another way of doing that. But Clark loves his parents. It's just strange. I don't get it. But yeah, but he's special. He's the first natural birth of Krypton. He's a down-home American still. He drinks beer. He's Midwestern. He watches the basketball games. He makes right decisions and wants to save people no matter what. He goes to church for guidance. So he's still pretty all-American. Excuse me. Some of the things that I noted him of saying is how he wants to surrender to mankind, basically be used by mankind for the betterment of mankind. How mankind kind of alludes to, or the army, the person in the army, he was like, this man is not our enemy, kind of alluding that, you know, this alien, at least this one, he's not our enemy. And, you know, that Krypton had its chance to be great and it squandered it. So I think that's an allusion to us now. We are fucking up the earth, so it was our chance to make the earth better. And if the earth dies and crumbles because of us, we as humans deserve it. That must be what they're trying to tell people, because that's what I got from it. Yeah, so Jonathan, like I said, his dad is very strange. I don't really understand him. And the thing about him, the stupidest thing is when he died, right? He goes back for the dog, canonically. There's something that's going to kill somebody. I'm going to go back and get the dog. His foot gets broken when a tree falls on the truck. And right when he's able to, like, get away from the tornado, he puts his arm out. He's like, literally, it's so stupid. He's like, and tells Clark not to come after him. And then, like, does a smirk, like, I'm about to die now. And then literally gets winded, gets killed by wind. And Clark, like, is like, no! Of course, because he's like, bruh, you just made us watch you die. Literally everybody was saved but his dad. It's just too much. He literally could have took him out the tornado before he was ripped to pieces and brought him back down. Yeah, and that was to prove the point that, like, his dad was willing to die by that idea, like, keep yourself safe and keep your mom safe, keep the dog safe. Fuck me, if that means that y'all are going to be safe. So, you know, it's a lot of parents sacrificing their life to keep their kids safe or for the betterment of their kids, right? Yeah. Then we have Lois Lane, who to me is a very thirsty ass bitch. In this movie, she's the thirstiest of all thirsty bitches. Her and the mom are kind of just like two women who just do what their husbands tell them to do, basically. The mom to Jonathan, like, I literally don't even know her name. I don't even remember them saying her name. Her name's Mom to me. She just does whatever Jonathan tells her to do. The whole time he's like, yeah, don't tell Clark he's an alien. Don't let him do this and that. She's just like, Clark, listen to your dad. It's like, girl, stand the fuck up. Like, stand up, actually. Like, actually stand the fuck up. Like, girl, nobody wants to fucking do all that. So, she was weird. And then Lois, like, from the first time she saw him, she's like, I want to meet my savior. Whoever saved me, I want to meet him. I want him to talk to me. I want to know who he is and why he does it. And then she immediately backs off after bothering him for weeks. After he's like, yeah, I obviously have a tragic backstory. And she's like, oh, you're a person. Oops. Girl. And she's also very clumsy. She's always needing to be saved. She's always falling. And I'm just like, I don't like the damsel in distress edit for her. Because Lois is just so strong. And in the new movie, which I'm about to get into, you can see just how much better of a character she is. And how much more fluid she is. They try and make it seem like she's cutthroat. Like, she gets places early to interview people to catch them off guard. She, like, can shotgun a bunch of beers or shotgun, some shots. To prove her worth. But then she always ends up, then Clark comes in, she's like, oh, Clark. And I'm like, okay, girl. You're creaming your jeans right now. Relax. And then, like I said, the mom, she's whatever. And 2025, back to basics. Superman 2025 is directed by the co-CEO of DC, James Gunn. It was co-written by Gunn and the two creators of Superman himself, Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, or at least they're credited, unlike the last movie, where because of the hard feelings of the lawsuit, they are uncredited. However, they were also sued again for this movie by the families of the original creators, right? So you may remember the Schuster's names from the lawsuit between DC, Warner Brothers, and his family. Well, his nephew sued Warner Brothers for full control of Superman again in 2025 and was dismissed again in court. The film was set to continue while naming the two of them as head writers, as James Gunn decided to keep the original characterization of Superman. In an issue statement from Warner Brothers, they state that they have consistently maintained DC controls all rights to Superman. And will continue to change the narrative and hold creative control. So, Superman, unfortunately, does not belong to the person who created them. He belongs to the people, I guess. He belongs to, and not the people, his company. Which we can see in how companies do not pay animators, how companies do not pay. You can imagine how little money this family probably saw from, like, comic books and stuff versus now. I need to do research on that, so I'm cutting this out. But this new movie was meant to be the flex of creative control while also nodding their head back to the OGs who created the caped alien himself. This movie, as opposed to the flashback gray-ass movie that is Superman 2013, Man of Steel, this movie actually uses a ton of close-up shots. It's really funny. It uses a lot of humor and a ton of symbolism as well to elevate the overall messages of the movie, which I will put on the screen now and read aloud. Do what is right no matter what. Do not support leaders who wish to commit genocide. Be Midwestern, and choices and actions make you who you are. So this one's a little bit sillier, but also a little bit more overt. And I'll get into the plot and as to what I mean by that. So Clark is defeated for the first time ever. He's writhing in pain outside of his headquarters in Antarctica and calls for his cousin's dog, Crypto, to bring him home. Once home, we get an exposition dump about Superman being sent to Earth by his parents as a baby, and only one message making it through the transport. After he is healed by the Yellow Sun, he continues his fight with the Warhammer of Baravia in Metropolis. The Warhammer is actually being ran by Luthor Corp, Lex Luthor's evil corporation set on destroying Superman and becoming king of Jarthonpor. I'm going to fuck up the name of that fictional country this entire time. Jarthonpor, I think. The Warhammer leaves Metropolis with a threat to Superman and jets out of there. Clark goes to work at the Daily Planet the next day and scores his first cover story. After a quick phone check-in with Ma and Pa, we are introduced to the team of journalists at the Daily Planet, most notably Perry, Jimmy Olsen, and Lois Lane. Lois is immediately skeptical of Clark and how he keeps scoring interviews with Superman, but is interrupted by the Prime Minister of Baravia denouncing Warhammer. If the Warhammer of Baravia isn't from Baravia, who's driving the bus? Clark and Lois have their first interview at her home, which gets heated after Lois questions Superman's intention in saving Jarthonpor from Baravian enforcement. Lois plans to break up with Clark as his life is just far too complicated for her to understand. Clark's home is invaded by Lex Luthor while he is fighting a kaiju in town with the Justice Gang, and his parents' message actually was longer than originally thought to be. After defeating the kaiju, the news is blasting Clark's parents' message for the world and reveals that Kryptonians actually thought humans were inferior and needed to be bred and conquered. Shaken by this revelation, Clark rushes home to find everything destroyed and Krypto stolen. He confronts Lex about Krypto just for that footage to be used against him by the public. He tells Lois he loves her for the first time and intends to turn himself in so he can save Krypto. Superman is handed over to Lex Luthor to be put in his super prison in a pocket universe to die. After Lois asks the Justice Gang for assistance in breaking Clark out of the pocket universe, Mr. Terrific volunteers to join her. They travel to the site of the pocket universe and stop Luthor's cronies before finding Clark, a baby, Krypto, and a Squiggle Man, Rex, ready for capture. Once back on Earth, Clark works to heal himself from kryptonite poisoning, heads back to Kansas, and has a heart-to-heart with Pa. After doubting who he really is, after the frightening message, Pa reminds Clark that our choices and actions make us who we are, not what our parents wanted for us. Then another news broadcast. Baravia is invading Jarthonpor. The fuck? Clark is preparing to head to Jarthonpor, but needs to stop the incoming rip in dimensions that Lex's pocket universe has created. It's coming straight from Metropolis. Simultaneously, the Daily Planet reporters are readying a story about Lex Luthor's dealings with Baravia to eventually be king of Jarthonpor and run it as the main story. Clark defeats Lex while the Justice Gang thwart Baravia and kill the PM, or Prime Minister. Krypto goes back home to Supergirl, leaving Clark to continue his relationship with Lois Lane and keep saving the world. So yes. So, the differences with this one. Let's start with Clark himself. Clark is the quintessential non-cursing Midwestern boy who still has a car in his room, white boy that we know him to be. He's young, he's frazzled, he just got to this job. He's just revealed himself as Superman. He's doing pretty good at saving people, but now we've got big things, a war. That this is the first time he's actually involved himself in things that people want him to question his politics about. He's so Midwestern, he's just so country. Even in the first couple of minutes of meeting him, one of the other reporters is like, do y'all eat chitlins? Talking to, he, is so Southern and so country. And it's so funny because he's Midwestern. And being a Southerner, it's so funny because I just feel like the Midwest is the South with flannels. And I've said that many times, right? But yeah, he wants to save people. His whole thing is saving people. That's what Superman's whole MO always has been. He's saving a cat, he's saving a dog, he's saving a mouse, he's saving a bird, he's saving a human, he's saving a bus. He's just so ridiculously saving everybody. And on top of that, he also is trying to convert all of the villains into being good people. He's like, you don't have to do this. You can always turn back. You can always be a representative for good. He's just kind of annoying and irritating, which is how I remember him being characterized within the DC universe, because if you like the villains of DC, you'll know that they see him as sort of the nice guy. Oh my God, shut up. Superman's coming. He's not, look at this guy over here. He's about to throw us in jail, act like he's not about to hurt us because he doesn't believe in hurting people. But the other Superman, the 2013 one, he'll crack a neck. He definitely does not have that philosophy, I also like that he said he loved Lois first, so I'm like, this is to canon. Like, he's a very just sweet boy. He says, good gosh. He wants to save the kaiju, and everyone's just over him, always trying to save things. It reminds me of, if you're an Avatar: The Last Airbender fan, it reminds me of Aang, because everyone's like, bruh, Aang, you're gonna have to kill somebody. And Aang's like, I don't want to. But they're like, girl, you're gonna have to kill somebody. And he's like, I don't want to. They're like, girl, you're gonna have to kill somebody. Like, at some point, we're gonna have to put the pacifism away, but that's what these people are trying to say. Is like, there's always another choice. You don't have to choose to kill. Lex Luthor is the actual villain of Superman, so I am happy that we've skipped over Zod and we're on to the actual villain, Lex Luthor, and that Lex Luthor is so funny and so camp as Lex Luthor was imagined to be. You know, he is the epitome of the billionaire arms dealer with a team of Gen Z underlings who are so irritating and annoying. Well, they varied in age. I think the ones who got a lot of screen time were younger, but the ones who were running the show were the older folks. And his sole goal in life is to end Superman. You know, he believes that aliens and humans will never be able to coexist. If you've read any DC comic, you've heard of Lex Luthor. Okay, he is the antithesis to Superman, to really all of the superheroes. He is. He's like the Joker. He's just diabolical. He's always thinking of something to do to ruin these superheroes' lives. And I think he is really personified in this movie. He's funny with how ridiculous his evil plans are, but he's also scary with how ridiculous his evil plans are. He hates that Superman has more power. It's not even about him being an alien. It's just the fact that Superman has more recognition and was bestowed more power than him. Like, he just doesn't want anybody to be more powerful or more famous than him. He believes he deserves it all, and since he's a human and he had to, work for it, or at least, have enough to move around on the back end, that, he shouldn't just be handed fame and fortune and people liking him. But that's just what the fuck it is, Clark's just that boy, and Lex Luthor is a literal insane person, right? And so this also brings up a lot of the allegories to Elon Musk, to billionaires funding wars, because he directly sells weapons and creates villains in order to sell the weapons. It also reminds me of Iron Man, of course, because he was a billionaire arms dealer with a bunch of money and time and resources, and it took for him to be kidnapped by the people who were subjugated by his weapons for him to be like, damn, maybe I should get into a different line of work. Maybe the things I make actually work towards ending entire countries, and I'm not even tuned in enough to give a fuck about whether or not that's happening. Stark Industries, it's the same thing, you know what I mean? He builds portals without really thinking it through. He's fucking up the time-space continuum. He's locking up his ex-girlfriends. He's the ultimate Andrew Tate fan. Lois Lane, love her in this movie. She's not sucking up to Clark. She immediately questions him when he walks into work. She's like, you got another interview? Because she's like, it's just not ethical for you to interview yourself and then for you to get recognized immediately from it just because you're interviewing yourself. Isn't that also unfair? Like, for me, as a woman in the industry, I would be so mad that once again this white guy just gets to walk up in here and interview himself. That's what would make me mad. Because I know she's worked really hard to get where she was. And she's like, and here comes Mr. Midwest stomping in here interviewing himself. And so I love that she questions him on that. She questions his intentions on getting involved with a war without consulting any politician or what people would want. Questions his integrity. She even summarizes that, she questions everything and everyone, and you trust everyone you ever met and think everyone is beautiful when talking to Clark. So because of that, she wants to break up with him. She's like, this is just never going to work. And even Clark was like, what did you say? He's like, what do you mean by that? And she's like, nothing. And he's like, what do you mean by that? I love him. He's just so cute. But also she's a caffeine addicted girl just looking to get to the next part of the story and to, bring justice and to air out and be messy. So love her. She loves her man. Because I'm like, Lois does love her man, but she's not going to put herself in danger or do things that she wouldn't already do anyway for him. the other Lois from 2013, she's just so thirsty. It's just like, oh, girl, relax. The other Lois is like, girl, he's here, but I really want the story. Like, I'm writing my book. Excuse me. I'm happy because this movie really, a lot of the side characters are who elevate this movie for me. And for me, as a story writer and somebody who likes good stories, like, the more characters, the better, in my opinion. And so I like that we got to meet some of the people at Daily Planet, Jimmy Olsen, Perry, Kat, other people who work there. And then I also love that we didn't get to meet too much of Ma and Pa. We just got to see Ma and Pa's influence. Ma is a little bit more hardened than Pa. Pa, as she calls him, is a mush. You know, he's just crying all the time. But Pa's the one who passes the piece of advice to Clark that, you know, you're not what your parents say about you. Who gives a fuck about this message? And who gives a fuck that your parents are kind of like weirdos who wanted you to, like, genocide the whole planet? Fuck them. Whatever you thought they meant and whatever you actually want to do means way more than anything else. And towards the end of the movie, instead of hearing this message from his parents, he gets to hear the message from his faithful parents, and get to see himself be Midwestern. Which is why I'm like, y'all just want to really pump the Midwest right now, which we should. I've moved to the Midwest as a Southerner. Love it. Yeah, Eve is Lex's girlfriend. She's sort of like the comedic relief for the whole movie, but also the key to, like, Lex's downfall in terms of, like, newspaper-wise and, like, media-wise. Crypto, who is the lovable sidekick. He is a beautiful dog, and he acts like all dogs. You can hear my dog shaking and, you know, trying to make attention on himself all the time, especially when I'm talking. And same with my cat. When they see me on a computer or talking or on the phone, they're like, let me distract her. But Crypto really is a dog's dog. He is funny. He provides just enough comic relief, but he also is endearing. And he's just like every other dog, where you think they never listen, and then they finally do the thing that you've been trying to get them to do for, like, years. And so I just fell in love with Crypto. I want my dog to be Crypto this year for Halloween, most definitely. The corporate metahumans, the Justice Gang. I just love that funny analyzation of them as corporate metahumans. But Mr. Terrific, of course, he is just a cool black guy. I think at the end of the day, he's just a cool, smart black guy, and he has the best costume. Hot Girl is hilarious. I'm happy she killed the Baravian Prime Minister. If only we could actually make that happen. And then Green Lantern, he was kind of like some guy from Boston. I was just like, he's not listening, and he's kind of irritating. So I don't know what they want to do there, but I'm happy to see the beginnings of pre-Justice Gang versus the Justice League acting like we just now forming the Justice League. Like, no, bitch. Justice League's been around for a long ass time. Some of these superheroes grew into other heroes being in the Justice League and joining them. So happy about that. And then the newest addition, Rex, who we met in the prison when he was using kryptonite to keep Clark at bay. But yeah, I think this movie has okay, so yeah, let's talk about the differences and the similarities, and then I'm gonna wrap it up. So the differences, obviously the plot points. In the 2013 version, the parents sent this message, or really just sent Clark with good intentions, but we could see the intentions that they were sending him in, which is like to save Earth, and they were very pro-Earth and wanted him to be an example to them, versus this new movie where his parents are like assholes. Like, what the fuck? Like, you wanted him to what? To the humans? Like, bitch, you want us to take care of him and he gets to enslave us? Go fuck you. So, like, kind of fuck his new parents, right? And he has to make a name for himself versus going based off of what his parents wanted for him, which is also the crux of this new movie, where it's like, don't do what your parents are telling you to do, which is also kind of what the other one was saying. The first movie was also like, yeah, fuck your dad. If he tells you to stop being you, like, fuck him. Like, he'll die in a tornado. I don't know. I do like that we introduced the actual villain in the Superman universe, in Metropolis, in the DC universe, Lex Luthor. We need that if we're going to talk about the Justice League. And then stopping a war. I think that allegory is easier and better and more timely in 2025 versus 2013, where it's like alien on alien crime. Like, who gives a fuck about Zod? Who cares about any of that? And then they all die at the end, so it's just like, That was just for the plot, truly. Literally just for the plot. I think the characterization of Superman is also super different. Like I said, the guy in the back of the warehouse versus like this jolly 20-year-old who's like just now starting his job. He's just nicer. He doesn't curse. You know, what the hey, dude? Stuff like that. He's just sweeter. He's also more of a lover boy. He's obviously head over heels for Lois. And Lois is like, boy, I'm about to break up with you. Versus the 2013 version where she's just like ready to suck dick immediately. It's crazy. Like she's ready. The minute she sees him, she's like hair going in a ponytail. It's wild. I said that killing Molly, the scene, you know, spoilers, Lex Luthor uses someone as bait and murders him in front of a bunch of people, as crazy billionaires who fund genocide do. And I think that scene puts into perspective for children how serious genocide is. Like, you're willing to do anything to get what you want out of someone, including murder people they know, do torture tactics. These are things that America is employing amongst people. So yeah, I thought it was a ballsy move to kind of show that, and also show the impact of like, wow, just murdering a man in cold blood. Wild. And then Jor-El and Laura, we talked about the parents. And then I think this new movie has daring action scenes with delightful humor, versus the 2013 version, which is very beautiful cinematography and bleak outcomes. Like, it's just very depressing. Like I said, it's kind of scary to think about. I think the similarities, both armies were ran by hot women. Lex's army is ran by a hot woman, and then Zod's army is ran by a hot woman. I will show them on the screen. Perry versus Perry, like there's two Perrys here, and I think both of them did really good. I'm happy they're both black men, and I'm happy they're both like characterized as like, one was definitely calmer and less camp than the second one, but I think they're both funny in their own right as well as serious in their own right. So I love the two Perrys. The similarities was the fact that we had this first interview in the both movies. The one from 2013, her first interview with him was after they captured him, and he like asked for Lois Lane to be the person to interview him in this, in this holding room, in this holding cell, versus the first interview with Lois as they're making out like in her apartment, and he's like, you can interview me as you want, and she's like, really? And she's like, I love you, but I also need this interview, like this could boost me professionally. So, and she took it very seriously. So I like that we got to see both first interviews, and I can like compare them. And then Clark Kent is still the alias of Superman in both of these movies, which is so funny to me that, the glasses in the 2025, they're like the glasses. There's so much funny stuff in that 2025 movie. Yes. So in conclusion, I personally think Superman 2025 is the better Superman because of its return to the original characterizations of the key players in the story, its use of humor, and the change in plot from Man of Steel. Man of Steel was something that is visually beautiful to watch but scary to think about. Clark has such a dark past and a bleak future in Zack Snyder's rendition of this DC universe. These folks on Quora illuminated my exact sentiments about why this movie is such a departure from what we have seen from Snyder so far. Yes, I agree with this very disgruntled person. Snyder's villains are for adults. Gunn is making comics for kids again. And as my students know about me, I love and archive children's literature. In fact, large messages like ones about war, genocide, family, right and wrong would do best to be explained in the most layman terms as possible. I like that Lois isn't a thirsty girl in need of saving, and that Clark is even more Midwestern than before. As someone who is estranged from her biological family because I'm just not the kid they expected, I love the overall message to children and adults that what your parents want for you really doesn't matter. And in fact, good parents don't set those expectations for their children. It's up to the child. It's up to you to be the person that you want to be. I also have a lovely puppy, y'all heard him, and a cat, who I would do way more than bust up a building about, okay? I also have a lovely partner and friends who hold me accountable when they don't like the actions that I'm taking, whether we agree or not. I think Clark being this gullible, doe-eyed, and hopeful young man is exactly what we need in 2025. We need hope. And in that light, I will be making a donation. Now, number one, I bought 2 keffiyehs, one for me and one for my wife. Let me get up. the name and exactly where I got these keffiyehs that go directly towards Palestinian families. I will put the link. I got it on TikTok in the TikTok shop because we can use social media in ways to help folks. And then I got a free one in the package as well. So I'll be made that donation, and then I'll also put the picture of the donation that I've made to a Palestinian family or a family from the Congo or Sudan, or maybe all three. I might send something to all three, but I'll put it in the video right here because it's important to support these causes. It's important to stop genocide, you know, in public, and to talk about how heinous and disgusting these acts are that these countries are perpetuating. Our countries, the country that the U.S. supports Israel, and how our money is going directly to murdering millions upon millions of people, not just in Palestine, not just in Sudan, not just in Congo, but any place that America and the Western world feels that it needs to colonize in order to control the people. So I'm with you, comrades. I've made my donations. I think more than anything, we should be teaching our children about genocide, corruption, and war that devastate places like Congo, Sudan, Palestine, and across the world. And even here in America, capitalism affects us as well, and it's important to know the ways that it does. Speaking of, he's ready. Magic is ready for us to stand up for what's right. And we'll see you on the next video. Bye! Bye! Look at him. He hates it.